Hey there, I'm Olivia Johnson, 28 years old and a proud elementary school teacher. Let me paint you a picture of my life. Teaching third graders is my passion, but lately, home has been way more stressful than managing a classroom full of kids. It all started 3 years ago when my dad, Tom, married Karen. At first, I was hopeful, a new mom, new siblings, Brad and Megan. It could have been great, right? Wrong. From day one, something was off. Karen had this sugary sweet exterior, but there was always this undercurrent of dismissiveness, like I was just an afterthought. Olivia, sweetie, she'd say, her voice thick with fake concern. Are you sure you want to wear that to dinner? It's just, never mind. And suddenly, I feel like a kid playing dress up, questioning my own choices. But I brushed it off, determined to make this blended family work. Then there were Karen's golden children. Brad, 30, some big shot in finance, and Megan, 26, supposedly the next big thing in fashion design. And me? Just the stepdaughter who topped third grade, hardly worth mentioning. Last week, though, things went from mildly irritating to downright bizarre. Karen announced a fancy dinner party to celebrate Brad's big promotion. When I walked in, the house had been transformed, fancy tablecloths, crystal glasses, the works. Karen, Brad, and Megan were dressed to the nines, like they were about to hit a red carpet. Dad looked uncomfortable, stuffed into a suit that was definitely Karen's choice. We all sat down to eat, and that's when things got weird. The smell from my plate was off. Everyone else had gourmet-looking steaks, but my plate was piled high with this mushy brown stuff. Karen, I started, but she cut me off. Now, Olivia, no fuss. I'm sure it's delicious. Bon appetit, she chimed, all fox sweetness. I took a hesitant bite and immediately gagged. The taste, it couldn't be, but as I glanced around the table, seeing Brad and Megan's smirking faces, Karen's innocent expression, and Dad's cluelessness, it hit me. Dog food. They were feeding me actual dog food. That was the final straw. As I sat there, humiliation burning through me, I realized this wasn't just petty anymore. This was cruel, calculated. I wasn't going to be their family punching bag any longer. I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. All eyes turned to me, a mix of confusion, amusement, and Karen's fake concern. Olivia? Dad finally spoke up. Is everything okay? I looked from him to Karen, then to my smug step-siblings, and made a decision. This ended now. No, I said, my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside. No, everything is not okay. The tension in the room spiked. Karen's saccharine smile faltered for a split second before she regained her composure. Olivia, darling, she cooed, whatever do you mean? I took a deep breath. This, I gestured to my plate, is dog food. You serve me dog food while everyone else gets a gourmet meal. The room erupted. Brad and Megan burst into laughter, making no effort to hide their amusement. Dad looked bewildered, darting his eyes between me and Karen. As for Karen, she gasped dramatically. Oh my, how could this have happened? She exclaimed, hand to her chest. I must have mixed up the plates. What a silly mistake. But I wasn't buying it. The glint in her eye told me everything I needed to know. This was no accident. Cut the act, Karen, I said, my voice firm. This isn't the first time you've tried to humiliate me, but it will be the last. I turned to my dad, hoping, just hoping, for some recognition, some support. In my dad's eyes, I could see nothing but confusion. He just sat there, lost and uncomfortable. Dad, I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice, can't you see what's happening? How long are you going to let this go on? Before he could answer, Brad cut in, his tongue dripping with mockery. Oh, come on, Olivia. Learn to take a joke. You're always so sensitive. Megan chimed in, nodding along with a smirk. Yeah, it's not our fault you can't handle a little family fun. Family fun. My cheeks burned with a mix of anger and humiliation. This was their idea of fun, treating me like I was beneath them, less than human. In that moment, something inside me snapped. For years, I had tried to fit in, to be the perfect stepdaughter, to make this blended family work. But enough was enough. Fun? I said, my voice rising. You think this is fun, treating me like this, making me feel unwelcome in my own family? Well, congratulations. You've succeeded. I'm done. I grabbed my purse and marched toward the door, ignoring Karen's protests and my dad's weak attempts to call me back. As I drove home, my mind raced. This couldn't go on any longer. Something had to change, but what? How could I make them see the truth about Karen and her manipulative kids? How could I wake my dad up to the reality of the situation? One thing was clear. I couldn't do this alone. I needed help, and I knew just who to call. My best friend, Rachel, had always been there for me, and right now, I needed her more than ever. Pulling into my driveway, hands trembling, I reached for my phone. It was time to fight back, to expose the truth about my so-called family. Rachel's voice crackled through the phone, filled with concern. "Olivia, that's awful. We have to do something about this." Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me out of the pit of despair I'd been sinking into. "You're right," I said, feeling determination slowly replace my anger. "But how?" "We investigate," Rachel said, a spark of excitement in her tone. "If Karen's capable of this, who knows what else she's hiding?" That conversation lit a fire in me. The next day, I started my secret mission. I kept a detailed log of every interaction, every snide comment, every mistake that always seemed to target me. But as I dug deeper, I uncovered something far more sinister than I ever expected. It began with a misplaced bank statement. Dad had always been meticulous with his finances, but lately he seemed distracted, less in control. The statement showed large transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. My curiosity piqued. I did some digging. What I found made my blood run cold. Karen had been siphoning money from my dad's accounts, slowly draining his life savings. And that was just the beginning. One evening, I overheard Brad on the phone, his voice low and urgent. "We need to move the money now. The feds are getting too close." The feds? What had Brad gotten himself into? I called in a favor from a friend who worked in finance, and what she told me left me reeling. Brad's big promotion was a lie. He was knee-deep in a Ponzi scheme, using my dad's stolen money to keep it afloat. As for Megan, her designer clothes and flashy lifestyle suddenly made sense. A little more digging revealed she had been embezzling from her workplace, funneling the stolen money into high-stakes online gambling. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they painted was horrifying. My entire family was built on lies, manipulation, and greed. I felt sick. How could I have been so blind? How could my dad not see what was happening right under his nose? But as the shock wore off, it was replaced by a new emotion, rage. Pure, white-hot rage. I called Rachel, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "You won't believe what I found out," I said, spilling everything. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Olivia," Rachel said, her voice steely with resolve. "We need to take these people down." In that moment, something shifted inside me. I was done being the victim, done letting Karen and her family walk all over me and my dad. "You're right," I said, a plan already forming in my mind. "And I know exactly how we're going to do it." As I hung up the phone, a surge of energy rushed through me. The game had changed. No more playing nice, no more turning the other cheek. It was time for Olivia Johnson to fight back. And this time, I was playing for keeps. The day of reckoning dawned bright and clear. With Rachel by my side, we put our plan into action. First stop, Brad's company. "I have information about fraudulent activities within your organization," I said, my voice disguised as I spoke to the ethics hotline. I provided just enough details to set their investigators on the right path. Next, we tackled Megan's workplace. An anonymous email, backed with carefully chosen evidence of her embezzlement, landed directly in her boss's inbox. But the hardest part came last. Dad. I found him in his study, looking older and more worn than I had ever seen him. "Dad," I began gently, "we need to talk." For the next hour, I laid everything bare. Karen's financial manipulations, Brad's Ponzi scheme, Megan's theft. With each revelation, I watched the scales fall from his eyes. I can't believe this," he whispered, his voice breaking. "How could I have been so blind?" "It's not your fault, Dad," I assured him. "But now that you know, what are you going to do?" His response was immediate and resolute. "I'm ending this. All of it." The following weeks were a whirlwind. Brad was arrested at his office, let out in handcuffs as his Ponzi scheme unraveled. Megan was fired and charged with embezzlement, her glamorous lifestyle crumbling around her. Karen, suddenly without her financial safety net and facing my father's firm decision to divorce, was forced to move out. The last I heard, She was living in a small apartment, her grand schemes reduced to nothing but dust. As for Dad and me, we began the long process of rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were tough conversations, tears, moments of frustration. But with every passing day, we grew closer, stronger. Months passed. I threw myself into teaching, finding joy in my students' progress and in the supportive community I had built at school. Rachel, as always, remained my rock, ready with a listening ear or a word of encouragement. One sunny afternoon, as Dad and I sat on the porch of our now peaceful home, he turned to me with a smile. "You know, Olivia," he said, "I'm proud of you, not just for uncovering the truth, but for the person you've become despite everything." I felt warmth spread through my chest. "Thanks, Dad. I'm just glad we're here now." As we sat there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized something profound. The family I had longed for, the acceptance I had craved. I had it all along. It just took removing the toxic influences to see it clearly. My story isn't one of revenge, but of justice and personal growth. I didn't just survive, I thrived, and as I looked toward the future, I knew the best was yet to come. Now I have a question for you. If you were in Olivia's shoes, would you have exposed your toxic family members, knowing it could potentially destroy your relationship with your father? Or would you have stayed quiet to maintain family peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below, your perspective.